agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
When Royal Protection officers stopped a vehicle at Windsor Castle late last night, they expected a routine clearance check. Instead, a search of Tom Parker Bowles' trunk revealed items so sensitive they immediately triggered a high-level security alert. Within minutes, Queen Camilla attempted to intervene behind closed doors, but Prince William stepped in, blocking any attempt to sweep the incident under the rug. What was hidden inside that car? And why did William choose this moment to draw a line in the sand against his own stepfamily? The power dynamic inside the palace just shifted forever. The Midnight Gate checkpoint. It was past midnight when a dark luxury sedan pulled up to the outer gatehouse of Windsor Castle. Heavy rain was pounding against the windshields. Wind whipped through the ancient trees lining the estate perimeter. On any normal night, the guards would wave through familiar vehicles with a simple nod. But tonight was different. The Metropolitan Police Royal Protection Team was conducting an unannounced perimeter security audit. Standard procedure required every single non-official vehicle to undergo a physical inspection before passing through the heavy iron gates. The lead guard stepped out of the warm guardhouse and approached the driver's side window. He tapped gently on the glass. When the window glided down, the officer was stunned to recognize the driver. Sitting behind the wheel was Tom Parker Bowles, the 49-year-old son of Queen Camilla. Tom appeared calm, though slightly annoyed by the delay in the pouring rain. He reached into his coat pocket and produced a high-level VIP security pass. The pass had been issued directly by Clarence House. Under normal circumstances, displaying that card meant instant access. It was an unwritten rule among palace staff. Relatives of the Queen were rarely questioned. They moved freely across sovereign property. The guard held the pass under his flashlight. He checked the credentials. Everything looked authentic, but the unannounced security protocol was clear. Every vehicle without a diplomatic clearance code had to be searched. The guard cleared his throat. He asked Tom to pop the trunk for a brief routine inspection. For a fraction of a second, Tom froze. His jaw tightened. He asked if the sweep was truly necessary on such a cold, rainy night. He reminded the guards that he was heading to a private meeting on the estate, but the guard stood firm. He politely repeated the request. Tom stepped out of the car into the falling rain. He walked to the back of the vehicle and pressed the latch. The heavy lid rose slowly. The guard shined his high-powered flashlight into the trunk. He expected to see ordinary items, perhaps golf bags, personal luggage, or high-end grocery boxes from London. Instead, the light reflected off something far more unexpected. Resting inside were two heavy, rectangular packages wrapped in thick, unmarked canvas. They were bound tightly with industrial straps. Sitting right beside them was a reinforced locked leather briefcase. The leather was aged and stamped with an unfamiliar emblem. Crucially, none of the items carried an official royal household clearance tag or manifest barcode. The officer leaned closer. He did not touch the items. Royal security protocol was rigid regarding unmanifested cargo entering sovereign property late at night. The guard stepped back immediately. He reached for his radio with a gloved hand. A frantic, encrypted phone call was placed directly from the gatehouse to the chief security officer. The guard reported an unauthorized protocol breach unfolding at the outer perimeter. He explained that unmanifested heavy cargo was inside the vehicle of the Queen's son. Who had authorized Tom to transport these sealed items late at night? Why were there no manifest logs attached to them? And what was contained inside that locked leather case? Within minutes, the news rattled through the private communication channels of the royal estate. Word reached Adelaide Cottage, the home of Prince William and Princess Catherine, located just a short distance away. William was still awake, working through late-night briefing papers in his study. For years, an unwritten tension had simmered beneath the surface between Prince William and the Parker Bowles family. William had grown up in the painful shadow of his mother, Princess Diana. He had watched for decades as Camilla's private circle moved closer to the center of royal life. Now, Camilla was queen. Her children enjoyed open access to royal properties, private staff, and security privileges. Yet they held no official titles, took no public oaths, and had zero institutional accountability to the public. When news of the midnight checkpoint search reached William, he did not hesitate. He did not call Clarence House to arrange a quiet cover-up. He did not instruct the guards to let the car pass to avoid a public headline. Instead, William took immediate, sweeping control of the situation. William issued a direct instruction to the senior police inspector on duty. He ordered that every single item found inside the trunk be impounded and logged into the official Thames Valley Police Evidence Ledger without exception. No private handoffs, quiet waivers, and favors. Why did William choose this exact moment to stand firm? Was this purely about estate security, or had a long-neglected line finally been crossed inside the palace? The answers were locked inside that leather briefcase, and the fragile peace inside the monarchy was about to collapse. An outsider in the shadow of the crown. Tom is not a working royal. He holds no official title. He receives no taxpayer funding from the sovereign grant. By trade, he is a well-known food writer and restaurant critic. He has spent most of his adult life living as a private citizen in London. Yet his mother sits on the throne of Great Britain alongside King Charles III. That reality has created a complex web of privileges and power that few outsiders ever see. For years, non-royal family members moved along the outer edges of the institution. They attended private luncheons. They joined the family for Christmas at Sandringham. They watched ceremonial events from quiet balconies. But when Camilla became queen, the quiet boundaries began to blur. Suddenly, Camilla's adult children had unprecedented access to sovereign property. They were granted high-level security credentials issued directly through Clarence House. They were allowed to drive in and out of royal private grounds without advance notice. They interacted freely with senior household staff and private secretaries. To the public, this looked like a warm picture of a modern blended family. But behind closed doors, royal protection officers were growing deeply uneasy. Why were private citizens holding access passes that bypassed standard police screening? Who was monitoring what came into and out of private palace archives when family members visited? 6 months before this midnight checkpoint incident, a senior security officer raised a quiet warning. The officer noted that non-official vehicles belonging to royal step-family members were entering Windsor grounds late at night without logged itineraries. The security team submitted a formal memo to Clarence House. They requested clearer security protocols for non-titled relatives. What happened to that warning? It was quietly shelved. A senior aide close to Camilla reportedly dismissed the memo as unnecessary bureaucracy. The message sent to police officers on the ground was clear. Do not embarrass the Queen's family. Let them move without friction. That decision created a dangerous precedent. It allowed a culture of informal privilege to grow inside the gates. Tom Parker Bowles grew accustomed to waving his Clarence House VIP pass at security checkpoints. He expected the guards to smile, salute, and lift the barrier without asking questions. On this rainy night, that expectation shattered against the cold reality of an unannounced police audit. The guards on duty were not from the regular household team. They were specialized officers from the Metropolitan Police Perimeter Audit Squad. They were under strict instructions to follow the book to the letter, regardless of who was sitting in the driver's seat. When the guard insisted on opening the trunk, Tom was not just annoyed. He was caught completely off guard. He realized in an instant that his VIP card could not protect him from an official police sweep. And as the heavy trunk lid rose into the night air, the delicate balance between private family privilege and public institutional duty collapsed forever. Who gave Tom access to those unmarked items? Did Camilla know her son was moving heavy cargo across estate lines after midnight? Or was Tom acting as an unwitting messenger in a far bigger game? The discovery that broke protocol. What happened when the guards shined their flashlights inside that open trunk and sent a chill through the gatehouse? The atmosphere turned cold in an instant. The lead guard leaned closer, careful not to touch anything with his bare hands. Sitting side by side on the carpeted floor of the trunk were 2 heavy rectangular packages wrapped in coarse, unmarked canvas. They were bound tightly with thick industrial straps. Right beside them sat a vintage leather briefcase, locked with a heavy brass key mechanism. The leather was aged and worn, bearing an embossed crest that did not belong to any current royal department. The guard called over his partner and signaled for the tactical sniffer dog unit to approach the vehicle. Within seconds, a trained police Belgian Malinois was brought to the rear of the car. The dog conducted a careful sniff of the trunk. The animal did not give an alert for explosive materials or controlled narcotics, but the dog sat sharply beside the bumper, signaling the presence of dense organic compounds and chemically preserved paper inside the packages. The guards realized immediately that they were looking at unmanifested sovereign materials. In royal security protocol, any document, object, or artifact moving in or out of a royal residence must carry a verified clearance tag. Each item must have an accompanying digital manifest, signed by a designated curator or household officer. These packages had no tags, they had no barcodes, they had no clearance documentation whatsoever. The senior inspector stepped up to Tom Parker Bowles. He asked Tom directly for the key or combination to the locked briefcase. Tom refused to hand over a key. He claimed he did not have it in his possession. He insisted that he was simply transporting personal family property from one private residence to another on behalf of his mother. He urged the officers to call Clarence House immediately, so the issue could be cleared up quietly. That request put the officers in an impossible dilemma. Under standard operating procedures, when unmanifested cargo is discovered during an unannounced audit, the incident must be recorded in real time on police body cameras. It must be logged directly into the Thames Valley Police Official Dispatch database. If the guards picked up the phone and made an informal deal with Clarence House, they would be committing a severe breach of police protocol. They would be helping to cover up an undocumented removal of potential institutional materials. They could lose their badges. They could face criminal charges for misconduct in public office. The lead inspector made his decision. He activated his body camera. He informed Tom Parker Bowles that the vehicle and all its contents were officially being detained under Section 24 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. What was inside those canvas packages that made Tom risk his reputation in the middle of the night? According to insider leaks that surfaced hours later, preliminary scans revealed bundles of archived private letters, sensitive financial ledger copies, and historical personal diaries dating back decades. These were not ordinary private papers. They contained intimate correspondence between senior royals, private financial transactions involving overseas accounts, and sensitive notes detailing palace disputes that had never been made public. If these documents reached the public domain or private collectors, the fallout for the monarchy would be catastrophic. The guards realized they were standing on a powder keg. The story was no longer just about a routine traffic stop. It was about a major breach of palace archive security involving the highest levels of the royal family. The senior inspector picked up his secure radio and dialed the personal line of the resident police commissioner at Windsor. Within 3 minutes, the message reached Adelaide Cottage. Prince William was about to make the most consequential decision of his tenure as Prince of Wales. Camilla's desperate intervention. The moment news of the detention reached Clarence House, panic spread through the private quarters. Queen Camilla was awakened by an urgent phone call from her private secretary. When she heard that police officers had impounded her son's vehicle at the Windsor Gatehouse, her reaction was immediate. Camilla did not wait until morning to take action. She knew how quickly information could spread inside the security services. She understood that if the police report was finalized and filed into the official database, it would be impossible to erase. Within 20 minutes of the phone call, Camilla instructed her senior staff to contact the Windsor Gatehouse directly. Her primary goal was clear. She wanted to secure the release of the vehicle and the locked cargo before the items could be processed into the police evidence vault. Her senior advisor made a direct line call to the police commander overseeing the audit squad. The advisor attempted to downplay the entire incident. He suggested that the whole situation was a minor administrative misunderstanding. He argued that the cargo in the vehicle was private personal property belonging to the Queen, and therefore exempt from standard perimeter inspection routines. The advisor requested that the officers hand over the leather briefcase and the canvas packages to a private royal courier. The courier was already on standby to drive from London to Windsor. In exchange, Clarence House would issue a retroactive clearance letter signed by an official household representative. Under normal circumstances, such an intervention might have worked. For decades, private informal arrangements had resolved sensitive issues behind palace walls. But tonight, the traditional playbook failed completely. The police commander politely but firmly refused the request. He explained that the audit was being conducted under strict new joint operating guidelines. Because the incident had already been logged electronically on body camera footage, any attempt to hand over impounded materials without an official police release order would violate statutory law. When Camilla learned of the police commander's refusal, her frustration mounted. she realized that standard authority was no longer enough to resolve the crisis. She decided to bypass middle management entirely. Camilla picked up her private telephone and dialed Adelaide Cottage directly. She wanted to speak to Prince William. She hoped to appeal to him person to person before the situation escalated any further. She intended to ask him to use his position as the premier royal trustee of the Windsor estate to stand down the police audit squad. The phone rang in William's private study. William looked at the caller identification. He knew why his stepmother was calling at 2 o'clock in the morning. He recognized the pressure that was about to come his way. Instead of answering the line directly, William allowed the call to go through to his duty private secretary. He gave explicit instructions. The secretary was told to inform Clarence House that the Prince of Wales was aware of the security audit and was fully briefed on the situation. Furthermore, the secretary delivered a message that stunned the Queen's office. William made it clear that he would not interfere with active police procedures at Windsor Castle. He stated that the Metropolitan Police and Thames Valley Police must carry out their statutory duties without any private intervention from royal family members. Camilla was left powerless. For the first time since joining the royal family, her attempts to manage a private family crisis were met with an absolute wall of institutional refusal. She realized that William was not merely observing the crisis. He was actively allowing the legal process to unfold. Why was William taking such a firm stance? Was he simply enforcing estate rules, or was he taking a deliberate, calculated step to demonstrate that the era of private palace cover-ups was over? As the rain continued to fall over Windsor, Camilla prepared for an inevitable morning confrontation that would test the fragile unity of the royal house. William steps into the spotlight. By 3 o'clock in the morning, the atmosphere inside Adelaide Cottage was focused and resolute. Prince William sat in his study, reviewing the preliminary security reports transmitted from the gatehouse. Across the table, his senior security advisor and private secretary were monitoring the situation in real time. For years, William had watched the institutional friction created by blurred boundaries within the royal household. He was acutely aware of public scrutiny surrounding royal finances, accountability, and security privileges. He had long believed that the survival of the modern monarchy depended on absolute transparency and adherence to formal standards. Now, a major security breach had occurred on his doorstep. The vehicle of his stepmother's son had been caught carrying unmanifested high-level cargo past estate security checkpoints. To William, this was not just an awkward family incident. It was an institutional risk that threatened the credibility of the entire monarchy. Within 30 minutes of learning about Camilla's attempt to intervene, William made a decisive move. He summoned the resident police commissioner and the chief security officer for the royal estates to a secure video conference. The chief security officer presented two potential paths forward. The first option was to issue a quiet administrative non-disclosure waiver. This standard waiver would reclassify the impounded cargo as private family records, transfer them to a locked archive at Windsor, and close the police log without further investigation. The second option was to treat the event strictly according to police protocol. Under this path, all impounded items would be formally cataloged, scanned, and logged into the police evidence registry. An official audit report would then be submitted directly to the Royal Estate Governance Board and the Home Office. The advisors waited for William's decision. Choosing the first option would keep the peace within the immediate family. It would also avoid a difficult confrontation with Queen Camilla and King Charles. Choosing the second option would spark an immediate internal crisis. William did not hesitate. He explicitly rejected the non-disclosure waiver. He instructed the resident commissioner to execute the second option immediately. William stated clearly that no individual, regardless of their connection to the throne, stood above the established security laws of the estate. He insisted that the integrity of royal archives and estate security took precedence over personal convenience or family politics. He then instructed his team to prepare a formal memorandum for King Charles. The document detailed every aspect of the gatehouse discovery, the contents of the preliminary police log, and the refusal to issue a private cover-up waiver. By taking this action, William took direct command of the narrative. He ensured that when King Charles woke up in the morning, the king would not receive a sanitized version of events from Clarence House. Instead, Charles would be presented with an official, unalterable police record backed by the Prince of Wales. Senior staff inside Adelaide Cottage understood the magnitude of what had just happened. William had drawn a firm line in the sand. He had sent an unmistakable signal to every member of the extended royal family. The reign of informal privilege was over. As dawn approached, news of William's unyielding stance spread quietly among top household officials. The stage was set for a dramatic morning meeting at Windsor Castle, where King Charles would be forced to choose between supporting his wife or backing his heir. The fallout inside palace walls. Dawn broke over Windsor Castle. The heavy rain had finally stopped, leaving the ancient stone walls wet and gleaming under a pale morning light. Inside the palace, private quarters, the atmosphere was thick with tension. News of the midnight gatehouse search had reached King Charles. He sat at his mahogany desk in his private study, his morning tea sitting untouched beside a stack of official red dispatch boxes. Across the room stood Queen Camilla. Her face was pale, and her expression was tight with anxiety. Standing by the window was Prince William. He was calm, composed, and completely resolute. This was the moment of reckoning that had been building for years. For the first time, King Charles was forced to face the raw friction between his wife and his eldest son. On one side was Camilla, fighting fiercely to protect her son, Tom Parker Bowles, and safeguard her family's standing. On the other side was William, determined to protect the future of the British monarchy at any cost. Camilla spoke first. Her voice was sharp and filled with emotion. She argued that the entire midnight incident was a massive misunderstanding. She insisted that the packages found in the car contained harmless family heirlooms, private letters, and personal keepsakes that had simply been stored in an archive unit for years. She demanded that the impounded leather briefcase and canvas packages be returned immediately to her private residence at Ray Mill House. She urged Charles to step in as sovereign and order Thames Valley Police to seal the file and wipe the evidence log. Camilla warned Charles of the potential public nightmare. She said the media would feast on any rumor of a police investigation involving her son. She argued that an official audit would fuel public gossip and damage the image of the royal family. Camilla insisted that family loyalty must come first, behind closed doors. Prince William listened quietly until she finished. Then he stepped forward and placed a single sheet of paper onto his father's desk. It was a formal summary of the evidence log created by the Metropolitan Police Perimeter Team. William spoke with quiet authority. He explained that the incident was no longer a private family matter. The moment the unmanifested cargo was recorded on police body cameras, it became an official police record. He reminded his father that any attempt to suppress the evidence log would be a disaster. If a royal aide tried to erase the record, the story would eventually leak. When it leaked, the scandal would not just involve Tom Parker Bowles, it would destroy public trust in the crown itself. It would look like a deliberate cover-up, engineered by the highest levels of the royal household. William made his position crystal clear. The rules of sovereign property must apply equally to everyone. No private citizen could transport unmanifested archive materials out of a royal residence without official clearance. Not even the son of the Queen. King Charles sat in silence. He looked down at the paper on his desk. He looked at his wife, whose eyes were filled with anger and distress. Then he looked at his son, the heir to the throne. Charles was trapped in a painful dilemma. He loved his wife deeply and had spent decades defending her place by his side, but he also understood the weight of his constitutional duty. He knew William was right about the institutional danger. In that quiet room, King Charles made his choice. He slowly nodded his head toward William. He agreed that the law and palace security protocols must be followed strictly. The impounded items would remain under secure police custody. They would undergo a formal audit by independent certified archivists. No documents would be destroyed. No logs would be erased. Camilla was stunned. The decision was a crushing defeat for her inner circle. For years, her family had enjoyed open access and informal privileges within palace walls. That era had just come to an abrupt end. William had not just managed a security breach, he had demonstrated who held real authority over the future of the crown. He had proven that under his vision for the modern monarchy, institutional integrity would always come before personal connections. The balance of power inside the royal family had shifted forever. A new order at Windsor. The morning sun rose higher over the ancient stone towers of Windsor Castle. The overnight storm had completely passed. The heavy gray clouds gave way to crisp blue skies. Yet inside the quiet corridors of the palace, the atmosphere remained deeply changed. A permanent shift in authority had taken place. Everyone could feel the new reality in the air. The events of the preceding night had fundamentally rewritten the operational rules of the royal household. By 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 marked police transport vans pulled into the estate security compound. Specialized officers from the Thames Valley Police Evidence Management Team stepped out. They were carrying heavy tamper-evident containers and digital logging devices. Accompanying them were 3 senior archival specialists. These independent experts were selected directly from the National Archives. They were completely nonpartisan. They did not answer to Clarence House. They did not report to the Queen's private secretary. Their sole duty was to examine unmanifested sovereign historical records in strict accordance with public archives legislation. The impounded items were carried from the gatehouse into a temperature-controlled vault under continuous police surveillance. Every package was cataloged. Every industrial strap was photographed before being cut. Every page inside the locked leather briefcase was logged into a secure digital ledger. The inspection was carried out with methodical precision. There were no private calls to pause the procedure. There were no informal requests for exemptions. For the first time in modern memory, a major security event involving a member of the Queen's step-family was processed strictly by independent authorities. Inside the main palace building, news of the police operation spread rapidly among senior staff and junior aides alike. Private secretaries, household officers, and security supervisors spoke in low, serious tones. Word had gotten out that Prince William had personally refused to authorize a quiet non-disclosure waiver. Staff members quickly realized that the long-standing culture of informal favors was over. For nearly 2 decades, non-titled relatives had moved through palace grounds with minimal oversight. They had enjoyed unrestricted access passes and unwritten exemptions. That era of informal privilege had dissolved in a single night. By noon, formal security directives were issued across all sovereign residences, including Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, and Sandringham Estate. Security teams received mandatory instructions signed off by the Royal Estates Security Committee. VIP access passes issued to non-working family members, and step-family relatives were suspended, pending a full administrative audit. Moving forward, every single vehicle entering sovereign boundaries would undergo mandatory identity verification and physical inspection. No exceptions would be granted for personal status or family connections. The rules applied equally to everyone. For Queen Camilla, the institutional fallout was profound. Her son, Tom Parker Bowles, returned to his London residence under an overwhelming cloud of official scrutiny. The informal influence her family had built over years within royal circles had suffered a decisive setback. Camilla realized that her elevated status as queen consort did not grant her supreme control over estate security laws or legal compliance. When family convenience collided with constitutional duty, duty had won. King Charles spent the rest of the afternoon in private consultation with his constitutional advisors and senior estate trustees. Although deeply pained by the personal friction between his wife and his son, Charles recognized the constitutional necessity of William's actions. Charles understood that the survival of the contemporary monarchy depended entirely on public trust and absolute accountability. Shielding step-family members from standard legal standards would have destroyed institutional credibility. By standing behind William's decision, the king validated a modern governing principle. The institution must always take precedence over private family interests. For Prince William, this decisive victory solidified his emerging authority as the true modernizing force within the House of Windsor. He proved that he would not wait for his eventual accession to establish higher standards of integrity. He demonstrated a clear, uncompromising vision for a streamlined, transparent, and accountable crown. William showed that he possessed the resolve to make tough, unpopular decisions, even when they caused immediate personal friction within his own household. His leadership protected the long-term standing of the monarchy against severe reputational harm. The internal dynamic within Windsor Castle had shifted permanently. A clear line in the sand had been drawn. The message to every member of the extended royal family was unmistakable. Special privileges would no longer supersede statutory obligations. Confidentiality waivers would no longer be used to hide security breaches. Under Prince William's rising stewardship, the British monarchy entered a strict new chapter defined by transparency, institutional discipline, and unwavering accountability. This dramatic showdown at Windsor Castle raises profound questions about the future of the British monarchy. As Prince William prepares for his eventual role as king, his willingness to challenge long-standing family privileges signals a major turning point for the institution. Will King Charles continue to back his son's uncompromising approach, or could this growing rift lead to deeper conflicts within the royal family? What are your thoughts on Prince William's decisive stance at Windsor Castle? Did he make the right decision by enforcing strict security rules against his step-family, or should family privacy take precedence behind palace doors? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this detailed report, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into royal history and dramatic updates. Thank you for watching, and we will see you.